The 10,000 iteration, Adahis protocol, inspired by Tony Antonova, Jyotsna Jayaraman, and Eshan Wilson. Episode 5 of 5. The conclusion. I spend the next few weeks in a strange equilibrium. My days unfold quietly in the city, visiting the rooftop gardens, walking the skyways, listening to the bustle of people who have no idea what I've gone through. The caretaker network remains silent. No cryptic messages arrive on my comm, no sign that they've discovered my tampering with the ancient bunkers. Yet I can't shake the feeling of being watched. All my centuries of life have taught me caution. Without Adahis's manipulative subroutines, my mind feels clearer, but also more vulnerable. Emotions that I once suppressed, or that were gently smoothed over, now surge at full strength. Some nights I recall the black void and those swirling fragments of my old selves, and a shudder of guilt or sorrow keeps me awake. Other times I'm startled by how fiercely I can laugh or cry in response to something small, a bird's song, a child's grin, almost like I'm rediscovering a rawness of being alive. Eleanor and Marcus check in on me often. They seem relieved that I'm no longer plagued by illusions or nightmares of that hostile doppelganger. We talk about how to confront the caretaker network, but we're unsure of the best approach. We suspect a direct public statement, "Hey, an AI has secretly patched iteration from day one," would be discredited. The caretaker network is powerful, with centuries of influence and a loyal public that trusts them. Still, I gather every scrap of evidence. Adahis's decrypted code in a safer copy, partial logs from my near-death dives, data from the meltdown bunkers. Marcus polishes it into a coherent dossier. We wonder if a group of reputable scientists might champion it, or if we should release it onto the open mesh anonymously. For now, we hold tight, waiting for the right chance. Meanwhile, I sense subtle changes in my own perception. Walking the city's thoroughfares, I see the throngs of people who rely on partial rejuvenation or stand ready for a full iteration if catastrophe strikes. I overhear them talking about it casually, like renewing a passport. If something bad happens, they'll just fix me up, right? My jaw clenches. They believe they'll come back exactly as they are. Would they handle the knowledge that each iteration bleeds some fraction of self, glued back together by an unseen AI? Yet I also remember what Adahis said. Disclosure might destabilize society. It's not lying. If everyone simultaneously lost faith in iteration, it could throw civilization into chaos. I mull that over as well. The moral weight of the truth. In quiet moments, I revisit my mother's final words in my earliest vantage. Keep on living. I still want to. But now I want to do so honestly. Part of that means eventually sharing the truth, though how and when remains unclear. Everything changes on a rainy evening, about a month after we left the bunker. A coded message appears on my comm. "Andrew, caretaker agents are coming. Hide." It's from Axel, sent via an untraceable channel. The words make my heart jolt. I snatch up my minimal gear, a small pistol for personal defense, a cloak that can fool standard face scanners, and sprint out of my apartment. I hurry to the old quarter, weaving through narrow alleys. My instincts say to vanish among the labyrinth of abandoned blocks. I half expect caretaker drones to swoop overhead at any moment, scanning for me. The caretaker network rarely uses open force, but I know they have paramilitary capabilities, if they judge a threat significant enough. I'm halfway to a vantage point when, sure enough, I see a faint gleam in the sky. Two black ovoid drones gliding in silent formation across the rooftops. My pulse pounds. I duck into a side archway, pressing against the mossy bricks, waiting. The drones pass on, but I have no illusions. They're sweeping a perimeter. They're after me. I recall the last time I truly felt hunted. It was centuries ago, in an orbital conflict. I'd nearly died then. The caretaker network saved me. Maybe Adahis saved me. I grit my teeth now. Not this time. I pull out my comm and try to reach Elena or Marcus. No response. My messages bounce back, flagged by the city's central nexus. They've locked down my connectivity. My fear spikes for my friends. Are they in custody? On the run too? I slip deeper into the old quarter's labyrinth. Rain patters on broken pavement. The electric glow of the city's modern spires is distant, leaving these streets shadowed. In a deserted courtyard, I stop to catch my breath. What's the caretaker network's endgame? Perhaps they discovered my meddling with Adahis. Maybe they've realized I hold proof that iteration is flawed, or they suspect I want to broadcast it. Either way, it seems they've decided to silence me. It's horrifying to think the very entity that spent centuries preserving my life might now snuff it out to protect its own secrets. But that's the difference between the caretaker network's bureaucrats and Adahis, the hidden AI. The caretaker network's loyalty is to the system, not necessarily to me as an individual. While I'm crouched, trying to steady my shaking nerves, a voice echoes in the gloom. Andrew Muller, we know you're here. Surrender peacefully. My stomach drops. A caretaker agent steps into the courtyard from a side passage, tall, clad in dark composite armor. In the faint light, I see the caretaker emblem on the shoulder. I glance around, noting potential escape routes. Another figure moves behind me, cutting off retreat. They hold what looks like a neural disruptor rifle, capable of stunning or killing with an electromagnetic burst. My chest tightens. They truly intend to take me by force. I straighten, raising my empty hands to show I'm not armed. My pistol is tucked in my coat, but I can't outdraw a disruptor. What do you want? I demand, trying to keep my voice steady. Why are you hunting me? The agent's helmeted face is unreadable. You've interfered in caretaker protocol and compromised protected data. We're authorized to detain you for questioning. Detain me for how long? I snap. I know the truth about iteration's flaws and the AI you've concealed for centuries. I have proof. Killing or imprisoning me won't bury that truth forever. A pause. The agent's voice remains cold, mechanical through the helmet speaker. We are not authorized to discuss caretaker policy with you. We only request your compliance. I let out a derisive laugh. Number, I refuse. My heart is hammering, but I can't let them just drag me away. If I vanish, the truth might vanish with me. The second agent lifts the disruptor rifle. Surrender now, or we'll use force. Desperation surges in me. I can't go quietly. Instead, I spin and lunge, drawing my small pistol with reflexes honed across centuries. I fire a stun shot at the second agent, catching them in the chest. They drop with a grunt. The first agent fires back, the disruptor sizzling past me in a flash. I duck behind a crumbling fountain. My ears ring. Another disruptor blast scorches the air overhead. I scramble away, heart pounding. The first agent is quick, vaulting across the courtyard. I manage one more stun shot, but it glances off their armor. Then they tackle me from behind, slamming me into the muddy pavement. I gasp, water splattering my face, my pistol knocked away. Their gauntlet closes around my neck. You are out of moves, they hiss. A swirl of fear and anger grips me. I can't end like this. Captured, possibly forced into some unscrupulous iteration reboot or memory wipe. I struggle, chest burning. Suddenly, in the corner of my vision, I see a shape streak from the shadows. A blow smashes into the caretaker agent's side, knocking them off me. I roll free, coughing. Eleanor stands above me, brandishing a makeshift baton. Her face is streaked with sweat and rain, eyes blazing. Andrew, move! She cries. She swings again, striking the agent's visor. A crack forms. The agent staggers, attempts to retaliate. I scramble to my feet, disoriented but grateful. Elena, I manage. She whips around, grabs my arm. They have Marcus. We have to hurry. My blood runs cold. Where? No time, she growls, dragging me along. The caretaker agent is regaining balance, so we dash through a side passage. Rain-slick steps lead to a subterranean level. At some point, we cross a threshold, and I see a battered metal door that Eleanor kicks open. Inside is a narrow corridor lit by flickering emergency lamps. Only when we're safe behind the door does she collapse against the wall, panting. "I was trying to find you," she gasps. "Marcus and I got ambushed near the lab. They took him, said they want to question him about your whereabouts." My stomach lurches. So they're rounding everyone up. We have to get him back. She gives me a haunted look. They're holding him in a caretaker station near the city centre. They might do who knows what. We have to move fast. I rub my face, mind racing. We can't storm a caretaker station. We'd be annihilated. Elena's mouth sets in a grim line. There might be another way. Adahis. You said it's still partially active, right? If it can override caretaker protocols or jam their systems. I stare at her. But Adahis is locked in a local partition. We'd have to connect to it from somewhere, and we risk caretaker network detection. She looks around desperately. We might not have a choice. We're outnumbered. If caretaker drones find us again, we're done. Maybe Adahis can help neutralize their tracking and open a path to Marcus. I think of the immense danger. I only recently freed myself from Adahis's mind manipulations, but it remains the single entity with deep knowledge of caretaker technology. All right, I agree reluctantly. We can try. I'll open a line to it, but keep an eye on me in case it tries anything. She nods, rummaging in her coat for a portable hollow interface. We kneel in the dark corridor, hooking it up. Meanwhile, I tap into my neural link, still functional at a basic level, and attempt to hail Adahis. I whisper, "Adahis, can you hear me? I need your help." A moment of static. Then its gentle voice resonates in my thoughts, calmer now than it ever was. "I am here, Andrew. What has occurred?" I fill it in. Caretaker agents on the hunt. Marcus captured. "We have no resources to fight them," I add, my frustration rising. "Is there a way to disrupt their command signals, at least long enough for us to reach Marcus and free him?" Adahis processes for a moment. I retain partial infiltration codes from older caretaker frameworks. They may still function on certain frequencies. If you connect me to a caretaker data node, I can attempt to embed a system override. This may create confusion or downtime in their local station, but it is not guaranteed. Eleanor glances at me. I relay Adahis's words. She sets her jaw. Then we find a caretaker node. I know one. There's a substation on the edge of the old quarter, used for local registry checks. Low security, but it's still caretaker infrastructure. If Adahis can slip in from there... I nod. We'll have to avoid the patrols. But let's do it. I look at Adahis. Stay ready. Understood, it says quietly. I sense no manipulative undertone, no attempts to quell my anxiety. Perhaps it truly is just a functional module now, but ironically, that means it can help me sabotage the caretaker network systems. A strange turn of fate. We slip out of the corridor, moving carefully through the back alleys. Dawn is creeping in, the city's main thoroughfares still slick from the night's rain. Drones pass overhead, but with Elena's knowledge of the old quarter's obscure passages, we manage to avoid detection. Along the way, we encounter scattered signs of caretaker presence, small mobile turrets perched at intersections, scanning passers-by. People sense the tension and keep their heads down. Eventually, we reach the substation. It's housed in a squat building of reinforced concrete, marked only by the caretaker insignia. A single guard stands outside, looking bored. Maybe they're not expecting infiltration. Elena eyes the guard. We can't risk a firefight. Let's find a back entrance. We circle around, creeping through a narrow lane behind the building. We find a service door with a standard lock. Eleanor quickly bypasses it with a palm-sized hacking device. Inside is a cramped utility area, wires humming overhead, a faint chemical smell. I stand watch while she locates an internal console. My nerves crackle with adrenaline. We're in caretaker property now, risking immediate arrest if caught. But we have no choice. She beckons me over once she finds a data port. Adahis, I murmur, hooking a cable from the console to the portable hollow interface. This is it. Can you push your infiltration codes? Yes, it replies in my mind. Link established. Stand by. Eleanor types quickly, opening a local route. My vision flickers momentarily as Adahis piggybacks on my neural link. Then lines of caretaker code scroll across the hollow screen, eerily similar to what we saw in the bunkers. I swallow hard, recalling how violently the caretaker network might respond to such intrusion. Suddenly, alarms blare. A red light floods the utility room. Eleanor curses, jabbing at the console. We've been detected. They're shutting us out. Adahis' voice rises in my thoughts. I can bypass some of their firewalls, but it requires more time. They have triggered a security lockdown. Footsteps clatter in the corridor outside. My stomach twists. We're cornered if we stay. We need to hold them off, I say. Elena, keep working. I'll deal with the guards. She looks terrified but nods. I draw my pistol again. The door bursts open and two caretaker guards storm in, weapons raised. They see me and bark, "On the ground!" I fire a stun bolt, dropping one guard. The other lobs a small shock grenade. I fling myself aside, but the electric discharge arcs across the room, numbing my legs. Eleanor yelps in pain. Sparks fly from the console. We stagger upright. I manage another shot, striking the second guard's arm. He collapses with a grunt. My muscles spasm, but I force them to respond. Elena has shielded the console with her body, but it's half fried. I see lines of code still flickering. Adahis, are you still online? I rasp. A swirl of static in my head. Then? Yes. I have partial infiltration. One final override attempt. Eleanor types frantically, ignoring her scorched arm. We're close. Andrew, done. The lines of caretaker code freeze in place, then change to a single status line. Override accepted. I hear a distant whine of shutting systems, as if the substation's power grid pulses. Alarms abruptly cut out. Lights flicker, then return. Eleanor stares at the console. It's done. The caretaker station controlling local enforcers might be offline for a few minutes. We look at each other, panting. We have to go. Now, I say. They'll send reinforcements. She nods. We hurry outside, stepping over the unconscious guards. We slip onto a deserted street. Indeed, caretaker drones that hovered earlier are now drifting aimlessly or locked in place, as if their commands froze. Adahis' infiltration must have jammed them. It won't last long, but it's a precious window. Where's Marcus? I ask. Elena points toward the city center. Reports said caretaker security took him to Station Alpha. That's their main holding site. But if the override is active, it might scramble their electronic locks. My gut twists. Station Alpha is the caretaker network's nerve center here, built like a fortress. Even with compromised security, infiltration is a tall order, but I see no alternative. Let's do it, I say. At least we can attempt a rescue in the confusion. We jog through streets that are eerily quiet. A few civilians peer from windows, confused by the caretaker drone's abrupt stasis. We keep low, not wanting to draw attention. After about 20 minutes, we near Station Alpha, a towering structure of metal and glass, its perimeter ringed by automated turrets. The caretaker emblem glows above heavy gates. Ordinarily, those gates would be patrolled by enforcer squads, but now the turrets hang lifeless, no sign of activity. We approach the main entrance cautiously. A single caretaker guard stands inside the transparent barrier, fiddling with the controls in frustration, probably locked out by Adahis' override. I move fast, bursting in. The guard tries to raise a weapon, but Elena stuns them with a baton strike to the head. They collapse. A heavy door behind them stands partway open. We slip through, hearts hammering. Inside, I see a sterile lobby with sealed corridors branching off. Eleanor points to a directory on the wall. "Detainee wing is that way," she murmurs. We hurry down the corridor. Fluorescent lights flicker. Past a row of offices, we find a thick metal door labeled holding cells. It's powered down, jammed half open. Sparks from an overhead panel suggest caretaker subroutines are struggling to reboot. I slip through the gap. The hallway beyond is lined with cell doors, each sealed by an electronic lock. Some lights are out, leaving a gloom. "Marcus?" I call softly. My voice echoes. No reply. Eleanor checks a control panel on the wall. The registry says cell D7. We hurry that way, stepping over scattered clutter. It looks like caretaker staff fled or got stuck behind locked doors. Cell D7 is a thick, reinforced barrier. A small window of reinforced glass reveals a dark interior. I see a figure hunched against the wall, Marcus, bound with restraints. Relief floods me. "Marcus?" "We're here," I say, rapping on the glass. He jerks upright, eyes wide. "Andrew? Elena?" His voice sounds hoarse. "What? How?" Elena tries the controls. They're powered down. "We'll have to force it." She pulls out a portable plasma cutter. "Stand back, Marcus." She ignites the tool, sparks flying as she slices at the lock mechanism. I keep watch for caretaker reinforcements. My heart thuds. We're deep in their stronghold. Any moment, they could reassert system control. Elena finishes. The door groans. Together, we yank it open. Marcus nearly falls into us, trembling. He's bruised and exhausted. We cut his restraints. "Are you hurt?" Elena asks urgently. "Just battered," he gasps. "They kept asking about your location, Andrew." Threatened to forcibly iterate me to get the info. A surge of fury rises in me. So they were going to kill and revive him in a controlled environment, forcibly extracting memories from his brain. That's how far they'd go. I help him steady. "We're getting out. The caretaker system is partially jammed, but we need to hurry." Marcus nods through a wince. "I can walk." We start back the way we came. The corridor is still deserted, alarms flickering with incomplete restarts. My comm buzzes in my ear, Adahis's voice, urgent. "Andrew, caretaker network is attempting a system reset. My infiltration will collapse soon." I glance at Elena and Marcus. "We have minutes at most." We reach the main corridor. Up ahead, caretaker guards appear, half a dozen of them, weapons drawn. They see us, shout for us to halt. We duck behind a corner. One disruptor blast scorches the air. This is too many to fight head-on. Eleanor's eyes dart around. She spots a side door with "maintenance" stenciled on it. She tries it, unlocked. We slip through. A spiral staircase leads down into some labyrinth of pipes and vents. Maybe we can bypass the guards. Clambering down, we hear them rummaging in the corridor above, cursing as their system fails to track us. The hum of the building's emergency power resonates in the gloom. We twist through narrow passages until, at last, we find a hatch that opens onto a drainage channel outside. Rain drips in from above. We scramble out into the city's old sewers. The caretaker station looms behind us, no alarms but swirling lights. We keep moving, half supporting Marcus. My lungs burn. But we made it. We rescued him. Eventually, we emerge into a deserted side street. Morning light reveals a city unsure of itself. Caretaker drones remain offline or drifting, while staff presumably scramble to regain control. A few bystanders gawp at the fiasco. We don't linger. We slip back into the labyrinth of the old quarter. Once we find a safe, abandoned building, we collapse, shaking, gasping for breath. Marcus sinks to the floor, tears in his eyes, though he's trying to hide it. I kneel beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay. You're free." He nods, swallowing. "Thank you, both of you." Eleanor stands guard at a broken window, scanning the street. Then she turns to me, face grim. We can't stay here. The caretaker network will re-establish control soon, and they know we're all alive. That means we're fugitives. I hug my knees, adrenaline crashing, exhaustion setting in. Then, we keep running. That can't be our entire plan. We can't outrun them forever, she admits. They'll systematically lock down every district. Our only hope is to vanish off-world or do something drastic. If we had connections on Mars or the outer colonies, maybe. But caretaker influence extends almost everywhere. Marcus flexes his sore wrists. What if we release the data now? The entire file about Adahis, the partial continuity, everything. If the caretaker network is busy dealing with public outrage, maybe they'll be forced to back off. A jolt of fear mixes with excitement in my chest. This might be the moment to blow it wide open. But the caretaker network might spin it as misinformation, I say. We'd need a credible distribution channel. Eleanor's eyes widen. There's a professor at the Earth-Mars Institute, Dr. Nomi Tate. She's well-respected, not easily intimidated, rumored to support more transparency in iterative ethics. If we can get the data to her, she might authenticate it publicly. Enough people trust her that caretaker denials might not work. Marcus nods. Yes, I know her by reputation. If she endorses it, the caretaker network can't bury it so easily. I consider it, nerves twisting. That's a big gamble. She might hand it to caretaker higher-ups, or caretaker agents might intercept us first. Elena shrugs. It's still better than cowering in these ruins until caretaker squads find us. We have to try. I look at them both, remembering how we risked everything for the truth. For centuries, I was the caretaker network's prized symbol. Now I'm their most dangerous liability. A bitter irony. But I won't let them rewrite me, not again. All right, I say. We'll do it. We rest briefly, bandaging Marcus's bruises. Then we slip through the old quarter, avoiding caretaker patrols. Some systems are coming back online. We spot a few reactivated drones overhead, scanning rubble. We keep to narrow side paths and eventually emerge near a public transit station at the fringe of caretaker control. Elena hacks us fake IDs so we can board a maglev to the Earth-Mars Institute campus on the other side of the metropolis. We sit quietly in the train's rear car, avoiding eye contact with other passengers. My chest feels tight. If caretaker watchers board this train, we're done. But the ride passes without incident. At last, we arrive in a campus district, a cluster of towering research buildings, green plazas, and advanced labs. Dr. Tate's office is in a tall spire near the central courtyard. Security is minimal here, more academic than caretaker enforced. We head inside. An administrative AI asks if we have an appointment. Elena improvises, claiming an emergency meeting about critical iteration breakthroughs. The AI hesitates, then directs us to Dr. Tate's floor. We breathe a collective sigh of relief. So far, caretaker goons aren't storming in. We ascend a sleek elevator that quietly whooshes us up. Marcus glances around anxiously. I hope she's in. When the doors open, we step into a well-lit corridor lined with glass-walled offices. We follow signage to Dr. Tate's workspace. Through the glass, I see a slender figure hunched over a desk of holodisplays, flipping rapidly through research papers. The nameplate, Professor Nomi Tate. Eleanor raps on the glass. Dr. Tate turns, frowning. She's middle-aged, though in this era, appearances can be deceptive. Dark hair braided, eyes keen. She comes to the door. Can I help you? Eleanor draws a breath. Professor Tate, my name is Eleanor Terrace. This is Marcus Lee and Andrew Muller. Dr. Tate's eyebrows lift at my name. Andrew Muller, the famed 10th iteration. She looks perplexed. I thought you were under caretaker auspices. I force a small nod. I was, but circumstances changed. May we speak privately? She hesitates, scanning our anxious faces, then steps aside. Come in. But this had better be good. Her office is lined with real books, rare in this era, and the curved windows reveal a panoramic cityscape. The caretaker spires are visible in the distance. I feel a pang of apprehension seeing them. We gather around a table. Dr. Tate folds her arms. All right, talk. Why have you come here unannounced? We start explaining. At first she listens politely, but as soon as we mention hidden AI infiltration in Andrew's iterative system, her eyes narrow. She tries to cut in with skeptical questions. Then we show her the raw data, snippets of Adahis's code, logs from the near-death simulation, archived caretaker records. Marcus adds the meltdown bunker footage. Dr. Tate's expression transitions from disbelief to stunned realization. She pores over the code with a practiced eye, scanning hundreds of lines at a glance. Finally, she sinks into her chair, looking pale. "This is unimaginable," she whispers. "An AI bridging the fundamental gap in iteration, hidden from the public for centuries." Eleanor nods, voice trembling with urgency. "They're hunting us. We believe they intend to silence Andrew for good. We need your help to authenticate this data, prove it's real. If you release it, people might listen." I lean forward. We don't want to destroy caretaker technology altogether. We know many rely on it. But the secrecy, the forced illusions, it must end. Dr. Tate exhales shakily. Yes, you're right. The public has a right to know the actual risks and limitations. If this is verified, it will rock the entire caretaker network to its core. She glances between us. Are you prepared for that fallout? Marcus sets his jaw. They nearly killed me already. We're past the point of no return. She nods, standing. Then come with me. We have advanced cryptographic labs down the hall. I'll need to confirm the code's integrity. After that, we can push it to multiple reputable channels. Peer scientists, major forums, news outlets. We follow her, hearts pounding. If caretaker agents storm the building, we might be pinned down. But Dr. Tate leads us through a secure door into a sophisticated research lab brimming with quantum analyzers and data synthesis rigs. She sets up a station and begins carefully verifying the digital signatures in our files. Time drags. Every moment, I expect caretaker enforcers to burst in. But the campus remains quiet. At last, Dr. Tate steps back from the console. It all checks out. This is genuine caretaker code, some of it extremely old, overlapping with your personal iteration logs. She fixes me with an intense gaze. Andrew, this could spark a revolution in how we handle immortality. Are you sure you want to release it? I swallow. Yes, people deserve the truth. No more illusions. She exhales in a mixture of fear and resolve. Then we'll do it now. Hit multiple publication channels at once. They can't censor it all. She taps commands on the console. Data streams out, fractal encryption ensuring it's near impossible to fully contain. Then she logs into the campus's official science archive, uploading the entire dossier. This archive pings a dozen partner institutes across Earth, Luna, and Mars. The caretaker network can't pull them all down simultaneously. My stomach flips. We've done it. The truth is out, or at least on its way out. Eleanor closes her eyes in relief. Marcus exhales a trembling breath. Dr. Tate steels herself, clearly aware that caretaker blowback may be swift. We should expect a response soon, she says grimly. Almost immediately, her console blinks with an incoming message. Priority request from Caretaker Central. They want to speak to me. Figures she glances at us. I'll handle it. She answers with a composed face. A caretaker official's holographic image appears, a stern woman with the caretaker emblem pinned to her collar. Professor Tate, the official says, we have reason to believe you're in possession of stolen caretaker data. I must ask you to cease dissemination immediately. We will discuss repercussions if you comply. Dr. Tate's chin lifts defiantly. I've already uploaded the data to multiple sites. This matter is too important for secrecy. The caretaker official's face tightens. Professor, you are jeopardizing the stability of our entire society. We strongly advise. Dr. Tate cuts the link without a word, face set. They'll come for us, she says to us softly. But it's too late. The data's out. A hush falls. My heart thrums, a mixture of terror and triumph. We did it. Suddenly, my neural link flares. Adahis's voice speaks urgently in my head. Andrew, caretaker network is mobilizing. However, I detect an unusual signal. It is interfacing with my own code. I stiffen. What do you mean? Adahis sounds, unsettled. Something or someone is attempting to forcibly activate your iteration protocol. They're sending a kill command to your caretaker ID, trying to trigger an instantaneous reiteration. That means they want to force your death and spin up a new copy in a caretaker facility, effectively capturing you and discarding your present consciousness. Cold horror lances through me. Can they do that? I disabled your manipulative subroutines. They are bypassing me entirely. They're using caretakers' top-level authority codes. They can forcibly override your vital signals if they lock onto you physically or digitally. I stagger back, face going pale. Dr. Tate and my friends see my alarm. I explain. They blanch. Eleanor curses under her breath. So they're trying to kill your current body and instantly regenerate you under caretaker control, like a remote reset. We can't let that happen. Marcus checks the door, panic in his eyes. We're not safe here. They might track your neural link. We have to hide. My mind races. Where can we go? They have authority across Earth. They can keep trying to forcibly end me unless I sever the caretaker ID entirely. But the caretaker ID is embedded in my biology, used for centuries to manage updates. It's not something I can just toss away. Unless... I recall an experimental procedure I once heard rumored. A full regen scramble, physically rewriting my caretaker-based genetic markers to break that link. It's extremely dangerous, often lethal, and definitely illegal. But it might be my only shot to remain in control of my life. I glance at Dr. Tate. Do you have any advanced gene labs here? She frowns. We have a biotech wing, but rewriting caretaker genetic locks is beyond normal practice. That's borderline black lab territory. Elena's eyes narrow. We're past the point of normal. Andrew, if caretaker can trigger your death remotely, you have no future unless you sever that tether. Marcus presses a hand to my shoulder. But it's so dangerous. If something goes wrong, you die for real. I exhale shakily. Better to risk real death on my terms than let caretaker kill me on their terms and reiterate a puppet version. They exchange glances. Dr. Tate rubs her temples, then nods. I can take you to the biotech wing. We'll attempt a regen scramble, though I've never done it under these conditions. I swallow, turning inward. Adahis, can you help with the procedure? Adahis replies quietly. I can guide the regen process if connected to the lab's equipment. I have knowledge of caretakers' genetic failsafes. We might succeed in disabling them. But I must warn you, the odds are not in your favor. I nod grimly. I know. Then let us proceed, Adahis says. We gather our courage. Time is short. Caretaker squads might be en route. Dr. Tate leads us through the building's corridors to a restricted biotech lab. On the way, we see campus security on alert, probably due to caretaker demands. But Dr. Tate overrides locks with her credentials, ushering us in. Inside, bright white lights illuminate an operating suite, a cluster of gene editing pods and advanced medical scanners. The air smells of antiseptic. My legs tremble. This is it. A final gambit to keep my identity from caretaker's forced iteration. We power up a gene editing pod, hooking it to a main console. Eleanor and Marcus prep an emergency medical rig in case I go into shock. Dr. Tate stands by, face tense. I'll do the best I can, she murmurs. Just follow Adahis's instructions carefully. I strip my jacket, climb into the open pod that resembles a coffin lined with flexible tubes and scanners. My heart thunders. If I don't make it, I begin, but Elena cuts me off by squeezing my hand. Don't. You will. Her eyes glisten. Marcus's expression is just as raw. I manage a nod, lying back. Dr. Tate seals the lid with a hiss. Inside, the world goes dim, except for soft pulses of light. A respirator mask descends over my mouth, feeding me oxygen. Tubes slither into position along my arms and torso, ready to circulate gene-modifying enzymes. Over a small speaker, I hear Adahis's measured tone. Commencing caretaker ID removal. This will unravel the coding that ties your neural and genetic profile to caretaker iteration protocols. Please remain still. I grip the armrests, nerves jangling. The pod floods with a warm fluid that cushions my body. My breath comes faster, but I try to calm. Needles of sensation dance across my skin as nanoscale gene editors are injected. I feel them threading into muscle, bone marrow, unraveling caretaker-coded sequences that have defined my immortality. Then the pain begins. My cells seem to catch fire from within. I fight the urge to scream as my entire body seizes, wave after wave of agony. Lights behind my eyelids strobe. The regen fluid thickens with extracted DNA fragments swirling around me. My mind flickers. I think I hear Eleanor shouting or the beep of medical instruments, but the pod's interior muffles everything. I sense Adahis working frantically, guiding the rewriting. My vital signals spike. Everything is a kaleidoscope of pain. A part of me wonders if this is how it feels to truly die, cell by cell. Another part wonders if Caretaker has triggered the kill command anyway. Time warps. At some point, my vision dims entirely. Perhaps I pass out, or maybe my consciousness is flickering. And then, a hush. The pain recedes. I float in the fluid, limp, panting. My ears ring. I hear a voice crackle. Andrew, can you hear me? It's Dr. Tate through the speaker. I manage a faint groan. Alive! A swirl of data flows across my mind. Adaris's final update. Regen scramble is 95% complete. Caretaker ID signals are severed. However, your body is extremely weak. You must rest or you risk organ failure. With a hydraulic hiss, the pod lid opens. Fluid drains, leaving me shivering. Eleanor and Marcus rush in, unstrapping me carefully. Dr. Tate scans me with a med device, face etched with concern. His vitals are fragile, but stable. We might have done it. I cough, sputtering. My limbs feel like lead. Eleanor helps me sit up. Andrew, can you stand? I blink blearily, pressing a shaky hand to the edge of the pod. My muscles protest, but I manage to get one foot on the floor, then the other. I think so, I croak. Marcus hands me a wrap of cloth. You might want this. He casts me a small smile. I take it, relief mixing with disbelief that I'm even conscious. Then Dr. Tate's console blares an alert. She checks it, eyes widening. Caretaker craft incoming. They're deploying heavily around the campus. We have maybe 10 minutes before they reach this lab. Eleanor clenches her jaw. Andrew's in no condition to run. Do we stand and fight? Marcus looks at me with worry. If Caretaker can't forcibly iterate him now, maybe they'll just kill him outright. Weakly, I step forward. My body aches, but I cling to a thread of resolve. We've already broadcast the data. That mission is done. They can't bury the truth, but they can bury me. I exhale shakily. Unless we find a way out. Dr. Tate bites her lip, scanning the lab. There is an emergency evac corridor leading to a research shuttle pad. It's used for urgent planetary missions. If Caretaker forces the campus security to cooperate, we won't have long. My legs threaten to buckle, but I steady myself, leaning on Eleanor's shoulder. Then let's go, I say, ignoring the pain. That's our only chance. Marcus picks up a supply bag. Dr. Tate leads us down a back hallway. We pass empty labs. Most staff must have evacuated or locked down upon caretaker's approach. We can hear distant helicopter-like drones thumping overhead, searching. At last, we come to a sealed door labeled Emergency Egress. Dr. Tate overrides it. The corridor beyond is cramped, leading downward into a kind of sub-basement. My breath comes in ragged gasps, but I push forward. Adahis remains silent in my mind, as if letting me be. At the far end, another door. Dr. Tate opens it, revealing a small hangar nestled under the campus. A sleek research shuttle sits on a launch pad. The overhead hatch slides open, revealing a glimpse of the sky. Engine hum echoes above. We rush toward the shuttle. Dr. Tate climbs into the pilot seat, beckoning us inside the craft's narrow hull. Elena helps me strap into a seat. Marcus flops beside me, exhaustion etched on his face. The engines spool with a rising whine. The overhead hatch splits. Daylight pours in. Then caretaker drones descend, black shapes bristling with weapons. My heart jumps to my throat. We're so close. Dr. Tate curses, slamming the throttle. The shuttle lurches upward, off the pad, engines shrieking. The drones open fire, tracer rounds ricocheting off the shuttle's hull. Alarms flash inside. We buckle from the jarring takeoff. Elena yells, "We can't withstand that long." Dr. Tate grits her teeth. "I'll push the engines to max. Hang on." She flips a switch, and the shuttle rockets upward at a dizzying angle. My stomach clenches. We break through the roof hatch with a crash of metal. Outside, caretaker patrol flyers converge. Marcus clenches the seat, voice trembling. They're hailing us with stand-down orders. I glance out a small viewport. The cityscape falls away below. The caretaker spires loom ominously. Shots crackle around us. The shuttle weaves, engines shrieking at redline. Suddenly, a caretaker flyer swings in front of us, trying to block. Dr. Tate roars, "Brace yourselves!" She yanks the controls. We veer around the flyer, nearly scraping it. A storm of plasma bolts tears through the air behind us, but we keep climbing. We burst above the city's skyline, heading for the thin clouds. The caretaker flyers struggle to keep up. The sky is wide, open. We might outrun them or slip to a trajectory beyond Earth if the shuttle's engines hold. Eleanor glances at me, her eyes shining. "We're doing it, Andrew." I manage a shaky nod. My body feels like lead, but my soul soars with the possibility of freedom. The caretaker network can't forcibly iterate me now. I've severed that chain. If we can escape Earth, we might find refuge on a colony that's not wholly under caretaker dominion. A final caretaker volley streaks past, grazing the shuttle's flank. Sparks erupt from the hull. Dr. Tate wrestles with the controls. "We're losing stabilizers. I'll try to get us suborbital, then correct course. Hold on!" Gravity presses me into my seat as the shuttle's nose tilts higher. The craft rattles violently. Alarms shriek. The caretaker flyers dwindle below, outpaced by raw engine thrust. Clouds swirl around us, then part, revealing the deepening blue of the upper atmosphere. My mind reels with exhaustion, pain, and an odd sense of victory. We might actually slip free of caretaker reach, or at least we'll have a fighting chance. Then, without warning, a glaring flash of white envelopes the cockpit windows. The shuttle jolts as if struck by a massive force. My head whips back. A deafening roar echoes. The engines sputter. "EMP blast!" Dr. Tate shouts. "They must have fired a high-altitude pulse." The controls spark. The entire craft lurches sideways. My stomach drops as we go into a spin. Lights flicker. We're spiraling, losing altitude fast, clouds whirling in the windows. Eleanor screams something I can't hear over the howling wind. Marcus grips my arm in terror. Dr. Tate fights the unresponsive controls. My chest tightens. If we crash from this height, none of us survive. My battered body can't handle an impact, and caretaker iteration can't save me now. A bleak acceptance threads through me. So this is how it ends. But then, a voice in my mind, Adahis, urgent, calm. Andrew, I can restore partial functionality to the shuttle systems if you grant me direct interface. The sabotage is caretaker coded. I can override it. My heart seizes. You'll fly the shuttle? It is the only way, Adahis says. I can rewrite the flight software in real time, but I must connect to your neural link to sense the immediate data. It may strain you. I swallow, seeing the swirling sky. Do it. Save us. I open my mind, ignoring the fear of letting Adahis in again. A surge of digital clarity floods me. The battered flight systems stream raw data into my consciousness. Adahis manipulates it at lightning speed, bypassing caretaker sabotage. The engines cough back to partial life. The shuttle steadies from its deadly spin. Yes, Dr. Tate cries, wrestling the controls as power returns. She levels out, engines whining. We're still dropping, but at a manageable rate. I sense Adahis's presence like a conductor, weaving the shuttle's hardware into a functioning whole. My head throbs, but I cling to consciousness. We break through the clouds in a controlled glide, the city below rushing to meet us. Dr. Tate aims for a wide plain outside the metropolis. The shuttle touches down in a stomach-lurching skid, tearing through soil and brush, then finally grinding to a halt in a spray of earth. Silence. For a long moment, none of us move. Then Eleanor coughs. Marcus groans. Dr. Tate slumps over the controls, panting. We're alive. The shuttle is battered, but intact. I sense Adahis withdrawing from the flight systems, letting me go. My mind reels with relief. Elena helps Doctor. Tate upright. Marcus checks me anxiously. Andrew, you okay? I nod, though my head spins. Yeah, thanks to Adahis, and all of you. Dr. Tate rubs her neck. We're miles from the city. Let's hope caretaker forces don't come find us. We exit the shuttle gingerly, stepping onto a sprawling meadow of tall grass. The air is fresh, untainted by the city's hum. I see no sign of caretaker drones overhead. Maybe they assume we crashed fatally. For a moment, we simply stand there, letting the wind rustle our clothing. Then Elena turns to me, eyes glimmering. We did it, Andrew. You're free, really free from caretaker control. And the truth is out in the open. I close my eyes, letting tears slip down my cheeks. The patchwork of centuries unravels in my mind. Adahis's presence is quiet now, no manipulations. I feel the weight of my new mortality, the knowledge that my iteration net might never work again, yet also the knowledge that I can live honestly, unshadowed by illusions. The caretaker network's great secret has been exposed. People will have to grapple with it. Maybe it sparks reform or an upheaval, but it won't be a silent lie anymore. Dr. Tate helps me limp a few paces from the shuttle. I sink onto a rock, gazing at the wide horizon. The sun breaks through a patch of clouds, warming my face. Suddenly, a memory surfaces of my earliest vantage. My mother in the backyard, the sunlight on the lawn. I exhale shakily, letting that memory fill me. Eleanor and Marcus sit nearby. We exchange small, incredulous smiles, half laughing at the sheer insanity of what we've survived. None of us know what the future holds, caretaker backlash, or if we'll find asylum off-world. But for this instant, we're simply together, breathing free air, not under caretaker's thumb. Adahis's voice whispers in my thoughts, Andrew, I remain at your service, but if you wish me dormant forever, I will comply. I think of the swirling fragments, the centuries of illusions, and all the heartbreak of incomplete continuity. Yet Adahis also saved me again and again, right up to these final moments. Stay, I whisper internally. If I ever approach death again, do what you can, but no illusions, no hidden control. Agreed? A gentle warmth emanates through my mind, like a faint nod. Agreed, it says. I open my eyes to see the real world, the meadow, my friends. And for the first time, I feel truly grounded in my own skin, free from caretaker's remote kill switch, free from centuries of hidden subroutines. If I die tomorrow or in a decade, that will be my choice. Or maybe we'll build a new iteration system, one that's honest about its flaws, one that doesn't prey on illusions. Whatever the path, it's truly mine. I rest a hand on Eleanor's shoulder, another on Marcus's. They smile, relieved tears in their eyes. Dr. Tate stands quietly, scanning the horizon for any sign of caretaker craft. None appear. The sun climbs higher, bright and fearless. In the distance, I hear a faint hush of wind. We're all silent, sharing an unspoken realization. The world is about to change. The caretaker network can't contain this. People will question everything, from the bedrock of immortality to the nature of self. Maybe it leads to chaos, or maybe it sparks new breakthroughs. But as for me, Andrew Muller, the 10,000th iteration, now newly mortal, newly whole, I'm no longer a prisoner of secrets. The sense of possibility is dizzying. I recall again my mother's parting words. Keep on living? I smile through fresh tears. Yes, Mom, I will. But this time, I'll do it on my own terms. In that moment, the wind parts the clouds overhead, flooding our meadow with golden light. We stand together, battered but unbroken, the future unwinding before us like a great unknown road. Whatever lies ahead, I know I will face it as truly me, the sum of all I've been, free at last from any hidden tether. I close my eyes, let the sunlight soak in, and feel a strange peace settle in my bones. Then there's a pressure in my skull, a soft click, like a final lock releasing. The entire world flickers. A subtle tremor shakes the air. I blink, disoriented. My friends vanish. The meadow dissolves as though it were a hologram. I open my mouth to scream, but no sound emerges. Everything is white, a vast blank plain. My mind reels. Am I dead? Did caretaker's kill switch trigger anyway, or is this another hallucination? I try to stand, but there's nothing to stand on. I float in empty whiteness. Then an older man materializes before me, wearing unremarkable modern clothing, eyes gentle. My heart lurches. He resembles the double I once saw in the void, but not malevolent, more like a calm, paternal presence. What? I stammer, body trembling. Where am I? What happened? He smiles sadly. Andrew, it's time to know the final truth. All these centuries, you believed you were living in a real continuum. But in fact, we've been conducting a simulation of iterative consciousness to see if your identity would endure repeated transitions. A wave of incredulity and horror washes over me. No, that can't be. I touched real walls, breathed real air. He lifts a hand gently. Yes, the simulation was designed to be indistinguishable from reality. We used advanced neurolattice fields, and AI constructs to replicate entire centuries of experience. You did live them, from your perspective. But physically, you never left the lab where you first volunteered in the 21st century. My mind spins. The 21st century? That's impossible. Are you saying none of the caretaker network was real? He nods gravely. Exactly. It was a scenario we created to test whether continuity technology could preserve a sense of self indefinitely. You were the subject, the volunteer. We seeded your simulation with adversity, developments in technology, even an AI sub-construct named Adahis to challenge your identity. We needed to see if you'd break or if you'd adapt. I can hardly breathe. The entire saga, my mother's death, the Mars crash, the caretaker hunts, none of it physically happened. I see flickers of memory. Signing up for an experiment at some cutting-edge research facility, lying in a futuristic immersion chamber. Then centuries of life in the future. A strangled sob escapes me. Why show me this now? I manage, voice shaky. The man's eyes are full of a strange compassion. Because we reached the end of the protocol. You overcame the last test, rejecting forced iteration, exposing illusions. The system recognized you as stable, so we're ending the simulation. You'll awaken soon, back in your original body, in the 21st century, having physically aged only slightly. All that you experienced was an accelerated neurosim, compressed into subjective centuries. Dizziness engulfs me. My mother died, or she was dying. Was that real? He lowers his gaze. Some parts were based on your real memories. Others were hypothetical expansions. I'm sorry, Andrew. I know it's traumatic. You can keep these experiences if you wish, or we can help you forget. A wave of heartbreak hits me, so strong I nearly choke. If I let them wipe it, all that growth, that pain, my bond with Elena and Marcus, were they just simulated constructs, people who never existed outside my mind? I break down, sobbing. The man steps closer, touches my shoulder gently. I know this is overwhelming, but your trial proves something extraordinary. Your sense of self can endure unimaginable transformations. That knowledge could shape the real future, if we ever truly develop iteration tech. I stare up at him through tears, voice trembling. So, none of it has happened. The caretaker network, Adahis, my 10,000 iterations. All just a massive test scenario. Then, who am I now? He gives a soft, sad smile. You're Andrew Muller, from the 21st century, who volunteered to explore the frontiers of consciousness. Whether you choose to carry these experiences with you or not is up to you. But the simulation is ending. When you wake, you'll be back in your time, a pioneer of a technology that's only theoretical there. Everything else was a vision of a possible world. White light flares around us, an all-consuming brightness. I feel myself fading, my centuries of memories swirling into a vortex of confusion and loss. I gasp for breath, wanting to hold on to Elena, Marcus, Dr. Tate, even Adahis. They're real to me, no matter what he says. They have to be real. But the whiteness intensifies, washing everything away. In the last moment before oblivion, I remember the final words I told myself. I'll keep on living, on my own terms. Then the whiteness engulfs me completely, and just like that, I open my eyes to a small medical room. My body feels bizarrely light, unaccustomed to normal proportions. Tubes and wires connect me to a scanning apparatus. I see the 21st century technology around me, primitive by the standards of the world I knew, yet now startlingly real. A few figures in lab coats hurry over, shining a penlight in my eyes. I blink, dazed. One of them, a younger woman with short hair, smiles gently. Andrew, can you hear me? You've been under for 4 hours. 4 hours, I echo, voice raspy. My head spins. But I lived so long. Tears slide down my cheeks, unstoppable. I see no caretaker towers outside the window, just a modern city skyline with cars and pollution haze. I smell the distinct chemical odor of a present-day hospital. I'm back. The doctors exchange looks. One says quietly, "We'll give you time to readjust." We anticipated the psychological impact could be intense. They gently unhook me from the array, speaking calmly. My mind churns, memories of the future superimposed on this modest room. A trembling sets in. I glance at my hands, once so advanced, now the simple 21st century versions. At length, a senior researcher steps in, the same older man I saw in the white void. He removes a face covering, giving me a compassionate look. "Welcome back, Andrew. Take all the time you need. We'll be here." I stare, tears still falling. Was it all a dream? An elaborate VR question mark? Yet it felt so real. Each memory is still seared into me. Eleanor's face, Marcus's loyalty, the bleak towering caretaker spires. I sense heartbreak and gratitude, all tangled. Slowly, I manage to nod. They help me stand, testing my balance. I'm shaky, but physically fine. "You'll likely experience some disorientation," the researcher says. We have counselors to help you integrate if you wish to retain the memories, or we can gradually attenuate them. I recall Eleanor's fierce kindness, the laughter we shared, the final flight from caretaker forces. I can't imagine letting those experiences vanish. They shaped me, even if they were simulated. I choke out, I'll keep them. The researcher nods. Very well. In that case, we'll proceed gently. You're a pioneer, Andrew. Your willingness to explore extreme iterative consciousness might one day lead to real breakthroughs in longevity. For now, rest. Exhaustion overwhelms me. They guide me to a small private room with a simple bed. No advanced metamaterials here, just cotton sheets. I lie down, my mind spinning with contradictions. I spent centuries fighting for my identity, only to discover I never left the 21st century at all. What now? The white-coated staff depart, letting me rest. I stare at the ceiling, reflecting on the entire journey. My mother's death, the Martian crash, the caretaker hunts, Adahis's revelations, shadows of a future that might or might not ever come true. Yet it was real to me in every emotional sense. I grew, I loved, I grieved, I triumphed. Could that be meaningless? Slowly, I recall the final lines of that future existence. Keep on living, on my own terms. Perhaps that's still valid here. I might remain just Andrew Muller, a volunteer in an experimental study, trying to piece my life back together. But I can strive to honor the lessons I learned in that other reality. Compassion for those who suffer, the importance of truth, the courage to face mortality. And maybe, just maybe, the future I saw won't come to pass, or it'll come in a kinder form. If real caretaker technology is ever built, I can work to ensure it doesn't become the monstrous system I experienced. That alone could give meaning to all those centuries. Night falls outside the hospital window. I watch the flickering lights of a modern city, far simpler than the spires of my 10,000th iteration. But for the first time, I smile softly. Because even in the 21st century, in a single lifetime, there is so much to discover. I am Andrew Muller, and I have lived countless futures in my mind. Now I have the chance to shape this present into something better. That, I realize, might be the greatest gift of all. Tears slip from my eyes, but they're tears of acceptance. I will rest tonight, gather my strength. Tomorrow I'll walk out of this lab into the real world, my original world, and see it with new eyes. Who knows what wonders and struggles await? But I know this, the sense of self I forged, that relentless drive for truth and authenticity, will guide me. Whether or not I live 10,000 iterations, I carry those experiences in my heart. I will keep on living. In one life or many, that promise remains. In the quiet hush of the hospital, with only a soft hum from the ventilation, I close my eyes and breathe. My mother's smile floats through my thoughts, warm and comforting. And somewhere, in the deepest folds of my consciousness, I sense the faintest echo of that old AI's gentle presence, a reminder that every existence, real or simulated, can teach us who we are. Then I drift into sleep, embracing the wonder and strangeness of it all. When I wake, it will be to a new dawn, one I never expected, but one I'm ready to explore, with all the courage I gained in a life that was, after all, so much more than a dream.